Welcome to Private Banking Strategies Podcast with Vance, Lowe, and Seth Hicks, your secret weapon to protect your assets and never have to start over financially again. Vance and Seth help high net worth individuals, families, business owners, and investors structure an asset-protected, tax-free fortress for their families. Learn how to keep what you earn and use the velocity of money to create your own private banking system. Join us on this journey as we explore the secret strategies of the rich and political elite and help you take total control of your financial security. Now, on to the show.
Hello and welcome to Private Banking Strategies with Vance, Lowe, and Seth Hicks. Today we're going to be doing something pretty interesting. This is the second podcast that these gentlemen have had, and we're going to be walking you through what it looks like to engage them and their team from the very, very beginning. So in other words, if you were to call up, you hear this podcast, you know what, I really want to talk to these guys, you call up, you're going to know what to expect. Or if you email in, you're going to know what to expect from them, their team, and what their process is. And I love the fact that, Seth, before we started the podcast today, you told me you're a client. You were a client before you ever joined. So you're going to be really speaking from firsthand experience.
Absolutely. I was a client of Vance's before we became partners, and I will vouch for the process and how simple it is to really get your motor cranking on this.
Fantastic. Vance, thank you so much. I'm glad you're here too. You're the boss. You brought Seth on, as a client first, and now obviously he's your partner. And you really developed a lot of the system on onboarding people.
Yes, we had to have a way so that people could clearly understand what we were doing, how we were doing it, and whether they wanted to become involved or not. So we developed this process for finding out, getting to a point where an individual could make their own decision whether they wanted this strategy in their life or not.
Got it. All right. And I know there's multiple ways to contact you and your team. You've got the website, privatebankingstrategies.com. You've also got a book that they can download, or I think it's an audiobook as well. You've got an email list people can subscribe to. There's so many different ways to contact you. So what happens when they do? What's the very first thing that happens? If somebody calls up and says, hey, I want to talk to the guys that are on the podcast, what happens?
Well, if someone's interested in scheduling a call with us, they reach out to us via our calendar links, which come through the emails or on our websites, or one of our back office assistants can provide it to them if it's just a phone call. And they set up a 1-hour phone call with Vance or with I, depending on what their interests are. And the interest can be ascertained on our website. When you're looking through our website, we have check the box type of categories which say, are you interested in asset protection? Are you interested in tax-free growth? Are you interested in financial privacy? And Eric, what we find is most of our potential clients and actual clients, they check all the boxes.
Yeah.
And so they end up talking to Vance and they end up talking to me, and they kind of bounce back and forth between Vance and I until they've got a grasp and make a decision to move forward or that it's not for them.
One of the exciting things about this initial, people start hearing some ideas and things that they've never heard before, and they wonder if it's true or if it can happen for them. And so we've set up this exploratory call. It doesn't really take that long. It's about a 30-minute call. We can hone in exactly why they're calling, find out, okay, what is your interest? Where are you? Because they've marked this information down, and we can immediately start addressing what their interest points are.
All right. So they've got this 30-minute call, and obviously it sounds like it's free. To speak to either one of you, they've got a lot of seeds that have been planted, it sounds like. I mean, you and I, the three of us, have spoken many, many times off the podcast. I still have no clue exactly what you guys do. That's why you created the podcast, to educate the audience and educate me. So I appreciate it. But once they've got this 30-minute call done and they've got a lot of these seeds have been planted and they want to move forward, what's their next step, or what's your team's next step?
Well, I think it's important to understand they're going to realize that there are issues in their own lives, some pain points we call them, or unfulfilled frustration parts in their life. They've worked hard up to this point, but they haven't accumulated, they haven't reached their goals, and they can't figure out why. And so we've identified those. We've outlined the steps it's going to take to get educated in each one of these areas. They're very excited to go forward. And so one of the very first things we do is ask for what we call it an intake request form. Mm-hmm. And it takes maybe up to 20 minutes. It's not detailed information. We ask people to round numbers off, but we're really interested in their debt that they've got, what payments they have to make, and asset categories. And we have a proprietary special program that will analyze this information, put in the strategy they're trying to find out about, and show them results over the first 8 years, month by month, practicing the strategy.
All right, Seth, I got to ask you, how was that when you had that first 30-minute phone call, when you had that first contact, and then you were able to be a part of that analysis? What was that aha moment for you like, or what did it do for you and your family?
It really comes down to analyzing the 8-year analysis that Vance is referring to, which comes after a client puts forth their financial assets and liabilities and their wealth structure and their plan. And we apply the private banking strategies to their assets and liabilities. And the algorithm that Vance is referring to gives us a roadmap that provides a real structured plan where you know what to do every month. You know what debt to pay first and what place to put your cash so that you are getting a tailwind and not a headwind. And what that was for me and my family was revolutionary. At first I was upset and aggravated that I had never heard or learned of the strategies in the prior 20 years that I'd been building wealth and practicing law, because it would have made a massive difference in our life. So the first emotion for me was really one of regret, frustration. I'm late to the party. It was kind of bittersweet. But once I've actually been implementing this for the past 5 years, I've got the tailwind behind me now, and I have a framework that's very doable, performable, and laid out for me. One thing that Vance hasn't mentioned is that he is very generous with his coaching skills and his expertise, in that he revisits things with clients and they make sure that they're on target with their roadmap. But it is the client's responsibility to look through that roadmap, understand it. But it's simply a 1, 2, 3 step process. And when the light bulb comes on and you've got that tailwind, it's freedom. It's like financial freedom.
Wow. All right.
So Eric, let me share this with you, since you made the comment you're still trying to figure out what we do.
Yeah.
So picture this for a group of people who might be heavily in debt. They make a great income. They have assets. They've got funds sitting out there in 401ks or brokerages accounts trying to earn a return for them, but they got a lot of debt. Most of us have mortgages. The average American has credit card debt, car payments, and everything else. This system, without working any harder or changing your cash flow, most of our clients see complete debt freedom on the average of a 5-year period of time. That includes having their homes paid off. That includes having all their debt all handled and structured so that instead of this money being outflow, it's inflow. And that's all part of this 8-year analysis. That's why I'm going back to that.
Yeah. I mean, 5 years, that's incredible. I could understand, Seth, why you said that your first emotion was frustration because of not knowing about this and kind of feeling like you've done it the wrong way. I think there's a lot of us out there that have been doing things the wrong way for a long time. It takes a little bit of discipline. It takes a little bit of encouragement and accountability, I'm sure. If somebody decides to move forward with you and they've done this analysis and they're like, okay, that's it. I'm through this angry stage. I'm through this frustration stage. Now I just want to fix it. What happens then?
When people are ready to proceed, they are going to go through a very minimally intrusive exam, because the product products that we're using are life insurance products. So it's based on one's health.
Yeah.
But the life insurance assesses the health of someone based on a very minimally invasive exam. In fact, I just added a policy last week, and I went down to the paramed exam office with my 5-year-old, and it took about 7 minutes and 22 seconds, and
Nice.
I was in and out.
Yeah.
And the insurance company had an offer on my desk. One insurance company had an offer on my desk in about 4 days, 4 business days. And another one was right behind it in 6 days. Then we compare those offers for our clients to effectively implement their particular goals and strategies, and we compare the offers, one company to the next. We basically see which offers are best for them, and we're off and running.
And then you move forward. Yeah. And I mean, that's standard. Everybody that's listening to this podcast, if you've ever gotten life insurance, it's pretty doggone standard across the board. You're going to have a medical exam of some kind because the insurance company doesn't want somebody crawling in on their deathbed saying, no, I'm fine. And then they're on the hook for, millions of dollars or whatever. So it's pretty standard, and that's easy to do. Once that comes back, you guys have selected an offer. Vance, how do you have that conversation with the client at that point? We've got this offer. This is what we think is going to be best for you. How do you move forward from there?
Okay, I want to back up 1 second here
Sure.
because I want to go through. It's not the way we would normally think. Everybody kind of has an experience when they hear something. One person might hear life insurance, and then it's based on their personal experiences. What we are after in this strategy is a contract. There's a special contract out there that life insurance companies have that we want. It forms the absolute perfect private bank.
Okay.
It's tax advantaged. We want the contract. We also need to put out there that this strategy does not solve any type of death benefit needs. Again, we're after the contract because this is how the banking function was carried out before branch banking was popular. It was all done by life insurance companies. I don't know if people understand the history. And everything we know about money today is based on what the banks are telling us because they've removed this education and this strategy out of our education system, and that's what we're bringing back. So we use this special contract. In this process, at that point, when somebody says, hey, I love this, man, if I could actually make this happen, what's the next step? So we need to get the life insurance contract going and get the offers like Seth said. And then we move forward to the next step, which is what you just asked me, Eric, was what's next? We show them in a webinar, which we actually record for them and send to them after we're done, how it's all set up, how the components work, how it interacts. Then we show them how it runs, how you run your own private banking system to get the money back. We talk about one of the first goals is how do you get your monthly expenses back? That's the number one most exciting thing for clients. Sometimes I think, are you really going to be able to show me that? We really can. We make them a promise that we'll not only show you that, but you will agree with us 100% without any doubt that you can get your monthly expenses back. And that's the next process. That's the next podcast we do.
Oh man, seriously, I'm excited for that because I got to know if I can tap into that. Oh, that's again, like you said, most people have not heard this, and so this is new. I have no idea how that would work, but that's why I'm here, and I hope that's why everybody else is here listening to this.
That's why we're here.
That's why you're here. Yeah, absolutely. All right, so you guys have got this set up. You're teaching your clients how this works. You're using webinars. And in today's day and age, we know that meeting in person doesn't always happen, but I know you guys have all the capabilities to meet virtually. That's what we're doing. We're meeting virtually. In fact, all three of us are in different locations doing this podcast. So I know that you do that with clients. You also meet in person at certain times, correct?
Correct.
Yep. All right. That's fantastic. So let's go back to, you've explained this to them. They are well on their way to this financial freedom that you guys spoke about earlier. What's the next step after that as they're going through this process?
I really want Seth to jump into this part here because this is where we really make happen our 7 pillars.
All right.
what starts to unfold is where people are vulnerable, where they have their money, what government is planning or what banks are trying to do versus what we need to set up on a private basis to make our own systems secure so that we don't go backwards. The whole process here, is set up correctly, is outstanding growth without any risk, without any market or economy exposure. Is a need for a lot of protection. So maybe we could have Seth just kind of, since he's been a client, go through that.
Yeah.
Those 7 pillars again. Just briefly mention them because we're going to have podcasts mainly one at a time on each of those.
Sure. There are 7 pillars, Eric, of the private banking strategies that form the foundation and really give you the building blocks of how to implement your family banking system. The first is asset protection. We're looking at your cash assets, your hard assets, and we're looking at how to best own those and how to best purchase those, how to best maintain and rehab those if necessary through your private family banking. Now, the life insurance contracts that we structure, they are an awesome tool for tax-free compounding growth. The IRS doesn't tax any of your money in this private banking system and in your life insurance contracts. So many of our clients are very keen on tax-free growth. It's unlike a 401k. There are no penalties. There are no income tax triggering events when you withdraw sums of money. Then financial privacy. Clients want financial privacy. They want to learn how to get the multiple touches out of the same dollar. How do I use the same dollar more than once? That's the 4th pillar, the velocity of money. Then we've got these systems never go backwards. Unlike commodities and equities markets or other types of investment structures, they can go up and down. This never goes backwards. It never goes down. There's always a compounding, accelerating nature to it. Then the 6th pillar is guaranteed financing. So if you need to finance an acquisition or a business expansion, you do it through your own family banking system. And then finally, the 7th pillar is a legacy value of what you're creating with the wealth that you build during your life and transferring that tax-free, no estate taxes, to your beneficiaries and heirs when structured properly. So that's just a real 30,000-foot overview of the 7 pillars, just barely touching them. And in the future podcast, we're probably going to drill down real deep on each pillar and give people some real meat to sink their teeth into. But that's the 30,000-foot view.
Yeah, Eric, let me just throw this little story in, and it involves Seth a little bit as a client.
All right.
Most people, by the time they get to this point, have read our books. And one of the things that we put in our book was the miracle of compound interest. Uninterrupted compound interest is what we're claiming that people can receive. Compound interest is absolutely great, but nobody gets it because they have to interrupt it. And so in our book, I showed what a penny would grow to if it were doubled 3 times. And Seth, do you recall that phone call you had with me when you did about 20 or so compound?
Sure.
Tell us what happened.
Well, when a penny compounds by a penny or doubles every day, after 30 days, you're into the multiple millions. And I was doing the math in my head, and about day 15 or 16, I thought, this is never going to stretch to that. And Vance, he said, he just started laughing and said, well, just keep doing the math. So I just kept doing the math all the way out to 30. And it's those last 4 or 5 days that really bring millions compounding. And so that's what he's talking about. At the end of our lives, the money that we've got stored into our family banks begins to massively compound for us.
So it's actually this, folks. It's not everybody can start. Everybody gets year 1 or day 1. It's the end that we lose if we procrastinate. So it's that last compounding. That last compounding from 29 to 30 days went from $2.5 million to over $5 million. Thank goodness in our book we didn't go to 31 days or it'd be over $11 million.
Yeah. Well, I know that we're going to be digging into the 7 pillars in the upcoming series that we're going to be doing on this podcast. Or let me put it this way, you guys are going to be digging into the 7 pillars because I got a lot to learn. But before we wrap up this podcast, we're almost out of time. I know that we spoke briefly about it on the very first podcast, but tell us again, who's on your team? Because it's not just the two of you. You have an entire team behind you, working behind the scenes. Give us just a little sneak peek of what they do, and because I know that the people calling in or emailing in are going to have interactions with them. Let's let the audience know who they are in case they do reach one of them.
Our team members, besides Seth and myself, is Myra, who is my personal assistant. There is Cindy, who works very closely with Seth. These two combined probably know as much or more about what we do than we do.
Yeah.
They're very, very good. Seth, go ahead and introduce the rest of them.
Sure. We've got a number of agents that originate themselves, Eric, and that also help to service our clients. We've got a few different executive assistants that help to clients flow through our process and help them get forms completed and help explain things. And so there's someone always available for folks, either by email or by phone. We've got a pretty robust framework for making sure that clients feel comfortable and understood and that they're getting the time and attention that they need and deserve to implement these strategies.
Perfect.
So this team will actually help any client along this path here. Oh, I need to do this. I need to set up maybe my first loan. I need to be able to buy this debt. The staff will help walk them through this stuff step by step.
All right. Well, speaking of step by step, the next set of podcasts is all about the pillars. So, guys, I'm looking forward to it. I just can't wait to hear the information that you're going to bring forward. Any closing thoughts for today's podcast?
We just want everyone to feel comfortable with this process. And so even if we haven't covered some of the minute details of our structure and process, we want them to understand that our team's ready and able to serve them. And that's what our goal is to serve our clients with the best of our abilities.
And I guess my closing thoughts would be, as R. Nelson Nash, the father of the Nelson Nash Institute, told me, it's not so much about what we don't know about money that's hurting us. It's all about what we think we know about money that's incorrect.
Very good point. All right, guys, thank you so much for your time today. And of course, the last thank you goes to the listening audience. Thank you for tuning in and listening to the Private Banking Strategies podcast with Vance Lowe and Seth Hicks. If you have not subscribed to the podcast yet, please click the subscribe now button below. This way, when Vance and Seth come out with a new podcast, it'll show up directly on your listening device. This makes it much easier to share these podcasts with your friends and family. Again, thanks for listening today. For everyone at Private Banking Strategies, this is Eric Johnson reminding you to live your best day every day. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Private Banking Strategies podcast. Click the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Private Banking Strategies. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service provider with any questions you may have regarding your investment planning.